Why, hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful webinar that we are hosting today. My name is Joe Nagel, and I will be the MC for tonight. As you can see with me are a couple of our special guests for the session. We have Mike Cobb, who will be giving a little bit more of the rundown, but before I turn it over to him, I just wanted to let you guys know that we will be answering questions live throughout the session. So if you have questions that are already in your head or one of our guests or Mike says something, feel free to look at the bottom of the screen where you'll see a little Q&A box if you jot down your questions. We will save plenty of time at the end of the webinar to make sure that those get answered live. So feel free to put those in. I know the first question can always be the hardest one for people to come up with. So we have a couple if we need to help, get that going. But with that said, we have, like I said, a couple special guests with us. We have Grant Montgomery, who is the architect for this community that we'll be talking about in just a few moments. Grant, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, give us a few brief overview points about what you've kind of done for the community.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an architect. I have a license in Hawaii, in the US, and my wife and I have been living in Nicaragua in Grand Pacifica for nearly 3 years now. And we have some background in health-related issues related to EMFs and our own research there. So it's a little bit of a field that we understand from personal experience, and it's really good to be part of a team that's helping to make it better, make a community that works to help other people get healthier.
Awesome. And like Grant said, building biology is very important for this community. And, we're not experts in that field, but that's why we have Kathy Cook, who is another special guest of ours that you'll see online. Kathy, if you don't mind unmuting yourself for a second and just giving us a brief overview about your background.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I've been a building biologist since about 2017-ish, doing both air quality and EMF mitigation for people and testing. And so, yeah, I was really excited to come down to the area in January to get some initial testing done, and really excited about the results because they look great. So really happy to be part of this project.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And now with that being said, I will turn it over to Mike. Mike Cobb is ECI's CEO, but Mike, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, maybe give a quick background for those that might not be familiar with ECI just yet, and then you can dive into what you have to share.
Sure, will do. I'm really happy to have everybody here with us today, especially you, Grant and Kathy. We're sorry we're missing Karen Rich, who really was the inspiration for this project about 1.5 years ago now. And it's really come a long way from just a general idea of could we do this to, how can we do this to, oh my gosh, we really can do this. And Kathy coming down and doing the measurements, working with Grant to design homes that will actually mitigate EMF levels even further. And by the way, Kathy has a tremendous report. If you'd like to download it, we can send you the link. In fact, Joe, why don't you make a note just to follow up in this webinar with the link to the full report that Kathy put together. And towards the end of the presentation, I have a few slides about it, but then Kathy's going to stick around and Grant's going to stick around. We're going to be able to answer lots of questions, technical questions if you have them, and just really excited to be able to talk about what this community is going to mean to folks who are with us today. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and just get started, and we'll roll right into it here. The presentation will take about, 30-35 minutes. And then give me 1 second here, get my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. All right. Take about 30-35 minutes for the actual presentation. It's a very general overview of the country of Nicaragua, Grand Pacifica as a community, and then ISLA, which is the low EMF village neighborhood that we're putting together. So we'll tie it all together by the end. And again, Grant, myself, and Kathy will stick around to answer lots of questions. The first thing, Joe, you asked about the company. We've been around a long time. We started this business in 1996. That's 28 years ago. And really the bottom sentence there, we deliver inspired addresses and residences for adventurous souls. And if you're on this webinar, if you're thinking about moving overseas, you are an adventurous soul. And what you'll find is an incredible community of people who share that spirit with you. even if you don't agree on everything, the philosophical tenets of being an adventurous soul is powerful. And that's really the foundation of the community. We've been around a long time. We're working in 7 countries. We've got a ton of real estate. We've been doing this a long time, and we've built communities. We've built real communities. And I think that's the secret sauce. Anyone can build houses, right? Concrete, steel, and lumber make the buildings, but people make the community. And truly the secret sauce is, how do you get people together to want to come together and be a part of something tremendous and wonderful? And that's really what we've been able to do as our proof of concept. We've got a great group of people, myself, many others, about 130, 140 folks in the company, getting the job done day in and day out. So again, this experience really matters. What we're going to talk about today is first starting with the country. Why Nicaragua? I don't know if any of y'all have ever considered Nicaragua or not, but we have a little question in a second about that. You know, what's it like to live and move to the country? Grand Pacifica as a neighborhood itself, and then ISLA, the low EMF community there as well. So we'll kind of drill down all the way to the specifics, but let's start with a very, very general question. And if you want to put in a note at the bottom in the Q&A session, have you been to Nicaragua? Like, if you've been to Nicaragua, just type in yes. We'd love to know that you've been there. Maybe you're actually living there. You know, Grant's there right now, and a lot of folks that are living there are also looking at this as a place to live as well. So have you been to Nicaragua? Let us know. We'd like to know that. Nicaragua is the largest country. It's just south of Honduras and north of Costa Rica. Coastlines both on the Pacific and the Atlantic. Grand Pacifica is just southwest of the capital city of Managua, right on the coast. I always like to put this emerging destination curve on here because, look, this was really designed maybe more for investors than for lifestyle folks, but actually it really matters for lifestyle too. If you're looking for everything polished, finished, just like the United States or Canada or Australia or England, Europe, right? Nicaragua is not for you. Nicaragua is raw in some, I would say, wonderful ways. It's refreshing. It's got attributes that make it an exciting and wonderful place to live. It's rough around the edges, and if that's going to be a challenge, then please do not come. But on the other hand, if you say, well, I like things a little rough, I have a spirit of adventure, I'm willing to kind of tough it out a little bit once in a while, then Nicaragua really might be the right country for you. But the only way you're going to know that is to come visit, by the way, if you haven't already been there. And so one of the things we'll talk about is, coming to visit, plan a trip, come see what it's like to be in Nicaragua and see if it hits your heart. Because at the end of the day, moving somewhere overseas is a heart decision. Do you like it? Do you feel good about it? Those are the questions that we really have to, ask ourselves. I'm going to skip this slide because each of these points actually is covered here as we go along. Safety is actually the one thing that I hear more than any other question about Nicaragua. Is it safe? Well, the statistics say it is, and we can look at some of those statistics. There, in 2020, it's the most recent data I have. Homicides per 100,000. Nicaragua was actually the lowest country, lower than even Costa Rica or Panama. And when you compare that to some U.S. cities, Cleveland and St. Louis on the right side, you can just see simply how much safer the country of Nicaragua is than even some U.S. cities, for example. Again, more statistics. If you want to see any of these in detail, love to send them to you. But I actually like to put up my favorite safety slides, which is me, my family, living in Nicaragua for 14 years. This is my wife and a couple daughters. They would go out and camp at the beach. I travel a lot for my business. I'm on the road 2-3 weeks a month. And for the 14 years that we lived in Nicaragua, my wife and 2 daughters drove all over the country in a Honda CR-V. They went out to the rainforest, went off to the jungle to find a butterfly farm at the end of some really horrible muddy dirt road. They had flat tires. They got stuck in the mud and had to get pulled out. They went camping at the beach by themselves and slept on the beach overnight to watch the baby turtles hatch. And if you are a parent, or you can imagine being a parent, you would never leave your family somewhere that wasn't safe, which I did. But I always like to say that it's mostly safe because, you know, much of crime is behavior based and much of danger is behavior based, right? And so I always say that, you know, mine turned out to behavior. I was trying to break the speed record and I did a nice little tumble down the volcano. But at the end of the day, you know, crime is local. Is Nicaragua safe? It's as safe as you make it, right? Lightning can strike anywhere, but rarely does, right? I don't know anyone that's ever been struck by lightning. You probably don't either, right? Can it happen? Sure. But you know what? If we don't run around outside in a rainstorm with the, you know, with a big metal stick above our heads, the chances of it happening are a lot less. The affordability of a country like Nicaragua is incredible. Cost of acquisition is, you know, less than the US, similar in many ways to the US, because really the price of concrete, steel, doors, windows, wire, all faucets, you know, all the things that you need in a house, pipes, all of that stuff is priced at a world price. There's no discount on pipes or faucets or wiring or doors or windows in a country like Nicaragua. Sure, the labor's less, which is why it costs a little bit less. But the real advantage to living in a country like Nicaragua is the cost of living once you're already there. It is unbelievably inexpensive. And if you look at a place like Grand Pacifica, these are, you know, ocean view homes, you know, under 200, ocean front homes under, you know, $500,000, right? So the affordability really is there. But the real affordability is once you get there, right? It's the ability to live on not very much money and truly live well. The paradox here is that you can actually have a higher quality of life and it costs less, which is hard to imagine. But you know, I mean, we had a bag of organic fruits and vegetables delivered to our home every Tuesday, a bag, a giant coffee sack, organic fruits and vegetables, and it was $8, right? Because, you know, if you want to shop at the grocery store and buy the stuff from the US, all the imported stuff, you can. It's more expensive. But the organic stuff grown locally, and meats and cheese and fish, all of that stuff, you know, wild caught, hormone free, free range. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that takes your quality of life up many notches, but your cost of living way down. And then the country itself, it's got incredible historical treasures. It's got beautiful nature, everything from diving and snorkeling on reef systems on the Caribbean, surfing, canyon systems. It is an incredible country. The diversity there is just superb. In fact, Grant, who's with us tonight, he's up in the coffee plantation, up in the cloud forest. That's a whole nother geography, cloud forest, right? Incredible. So come to Nicaragua, make sure you stay, you know, maybe a couple weeks if you can do that to really experience all the wonderful things that are going on. And then the heritage, the actual old cities, a 500-year-old city of Granada and Leon. Incredible heritage, beautiful architecture, wonderful places to go visit. Lots of festivals, lots of people doing things, horse parades. And then even something like this, which is pretty hard to imagine, but actually hanging out and looking down into the mouth of an active volcano. You know, a couple things on investing in Nicaragua, really important. If you're going to make the investment in a home, right? You're going to buy a piece of property, you're going to build a home, you're going to make that big investment. There's some really great reasons to do it in Nicaragua. There are zero restrictions on foreign ownership. In fact, the Constitution guarantees equal treatment of foreigners and Nicaraguans. This is huge, right? You can actually own the land, you get title to the land, and you are treated the same as Nicaraguans. Property taxes are very low. So great reasons to look at Nicaragua. They've got a couple great investor, they've got a great residency program. One's an investor residency, one's a pensionado. The nice thing about the pensionado is you only have to be 45 years old to qualify as a retiree and show proof of income of at least $600 a month. So it's really easy to get residency in the country of Nicaragua. And now let's talk, and we'll bring it down a little bit, and we'll go from Nicaragua generally to Grand Pacifica, the community that we started there. Back in 2000, we bought this incredibly huge piece of property. It's 3.5 miles of beach. It's a mile deep, right? It's 2,500 acres. And it was a cattle pasture on the beach. and you couldn't get there. The road to get to it was impassable in the rainy season. The closest electricity was 26 kilometers through the countryside. There was literally nothing except for cattle on this property. And we looked at it and we said, you know what, we can build a small town here. We could really build something wonderful. And because we get to design it from the ground up, we can do things like install fiber optic. We were the first fiber to the home project in all of Central America back in 2004 when we first installed it. And now, fast forward, what's that, 20 years, right? Now, this fiber, which we put in because of the high bandwidth capability that it had, actually now gives a wired solution for folks looking for a low EMF environment. So incredible luck. It wasn't foresight. It was just simply luck. We have many different neighborhoods at Grand Pacifica. We have everything from our phase one, which is, I would say, a more traditional North American neighborhood. It's about 100 homes and condominiums. You can see beautiful clay tile roofs, shaded streets, sidewalks. This is what I would call a traditional North American community. We've got condos on the ocean, bar, restaurant, infinity pools. Wonderful, wonderful place for people to gather, and people do gather. Grant and his wife, Sasha, they do a jam session pretty often, and a bunch of folks who play different instruments come down and hang out at the infinity pool at sunset and watch the sun set over the Pacific Ocean and enjoy cocktails, and then start playing music, and all the folks in the neighborhood come down and they'll dance. And so, it really has become just a wonderful central spot for the community. And that neighborhood that I showed you earlier, this is a more recent picture. It's coming together, and many of the homes, about 40 of the 80 homes, have now been delivered. And over the next 3 to 4 months, the rest of them will be delivered, adding another 100 residents and folks staying there on vacation into the neighborhood. So a lot more neighbors. This is Grant and Sasha accepting their wonderful, beautiful home. Some folks that picked up one of the tiny homes and celebrated Christmas. Again, great activities, things that people want to do. Learning to surf, 2 phenomenal surf breaks at Grand Pacifica. This one is a beach break, very easy and forgiving, and then a professional world-class surf break called Meat Grinders, one of the best top 10 in all of Central America. And then, fun activities, hang out on the beach, go horseback riding, just doing wonderful, wonderful things that allow you to enjoy being outside and enjoy this incredible quality of life. Talked about the food earlier. About 10 miles down the beach is this incredible little fishing village. Get down there. A lot of folks, the restaurant goes down there, gets their fish, literally right out of the ocean. We have two different farmers market opportunities. We have a guy that comes in once a week and a guy that comes in every other week. They're bringing lots of fruits, vegetables. They bring in meats. I'll let Grant talk more about that later as well, but a great way to get the kinds of organic and hormone-free products that you really want. On property, we've got orchards. We've got thousands of mango, orange, soursop, noni, lemon trees. We've got plantains and other fruits and vegetables on the property. So folks that want to, begin to do some of their own gardening, it's very, very easy for them to do that. We offer lots of great ways to get in beach cleanups, medical programs, dental programs, sea turtles. Man, just protect the sea turtles. It's an incredible experience, and you can go out and save the eggs from being poached, and then 90 days later, you get down on the beach and you help the little baby turtles go. It's quite an experience. It's truly wonderful. Here's a picture of our farmers market. We've got cattle on the property. We've got bees. So you get down there, there's some really cool things that you can begin to engage in and really enjoy your life at Grand Pacifica. We're going to drill down now and talk about ISLA a little bit more. This is the site. This is our actual site plan on the right there, and where ISLA, the low EMF neighborhood, is. There's a teak forest on the property as well. And there it is a little bit closer up. You can see you're about 600 yards from the beach. Beautiful swimming beach and the surf beach. And here's a picture of Kathy taking measurements throughout the ISLA property. Again, she has a full report, 17-page report that we would love for you to download. But look at these readings. And if we get into the Q&A and you have questions about this, Kathy will answer them. But between 1 and 4 microwatts per square meter. If you care about this, you understand exactly what that means. These are open air measurements. These are natural measurements in the environment. This is before a home is built. That can actually mitigate these levels even further, but incredibly low readings throughout. Again, this is some of Kathy's equipment. She brought it down, professional equipment, tested the entire site. Electronic fields, dirty electricity. These are the kinds of things that she was looking for. They're not there. And as we design the homes, they'll be designed in such a way to minimize those as well. There is a cell tower on site. I'm going to be very clear. It's about 6,000, almost 7,000 feet away, a little over a mile distant. It is directional. It does not aim at the ISLA, as you can tell from the readings, but I do want to be very, very upfront. There is a cell tower on site, but it does not impact this particular location, nor will it ever, because we own it. We are the developer, and so we control what goes on the property. The other thing is there's an overhead power line that comes by, and using the metrics does not interfere with and provide any additional EMF to the ISLA site as well. This is the site plan. Just generally, we're going to flip through that. If you're interested, we'll get all of this information to you. Some beautiful home designs that Grant has put together, working with Kathy to make sure that they mitigate EMF. Home sites starting at $69,000. We have home packages, right? So you can actually have a home package. Hey, I don't want to try to figure this out. I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home. Great. And we'll look at that in a second. But some folks actually just want to have a home site, right? And you could have a home site. You can put a yurt on it. You can build a dome home on it. There will be restrictions on the EMF levels that emit from your home. Whatever you build will have a maximum EMF emittance factor, and that will be part of the architectural covenants and restrictions that run with the land. But if you just want to buy a lot and you want to build your own home on it, design it, that's great. Again, the requirements will be to protect the EMF levels for all the other residents in this neighborhood as well. But $69,000. Home packages starting under $200,000 for a cool little small home. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, beautiful home there. 2 bedroom, 2 bath home. And then the neighborhood as it would look like built out, again, about 600 yards from the Pacific Ocean. The construction standards that we will build from, and again, if you want a dome home, you want a yurt, that's fine. But when we construct a home for a client in a home package, we'll be using concrete construction. The mitigation of EMF is extremely significant when you build out of concrete. That is the traditional building methodology in Nicaragua, concrete. The laborers understand how to do it. The design elements are already factored in. It's the way they build in Nicaragua, and fortunately, it's also the construction methodology that mitigates EMF the most. If for folks that are looking for additional mitigation, there are special paints, window treatments. There's a Faraday fabric that can be used. I know that Grant was looking at a screen product that could be put in as a standard on all homes as well. The metal conduit shielding will be standard in all the homes as well. So a lot of the mitigation factors will be standard. Some will be upgrades that folks can add to their homes as well. Mentioned the fiber already. Pacific Broadband was the company we worked with. We can run fiber to the home. We will be running fiber to the home. We'll be putting 1 drop in each room so that you could have wired connectivity in each room. Grant has some ideas about what they do in their home at Grand Pacific to offer more connectivity in a room. But if you want more drops, no problem. It'll all be Ethernet wired into the home. There will be a solar field off-site so that the inverters don't produce any additional dirty electricity for the ISLA neighborhood. It'll be nearby. So if you said, hey, I want to have a solar home, no problem. You don't have to put the solar panels on your roof. You can put them out about 250, 300 yards away. They're your solar panels. Whatever they generate goes to your house. It'll be independently metered so that you can have a solar home. You can be off grid if that's what you want. You can have the battery capacity as well. But it's not going to be on your home. So you won't have to deal with any of the EMF considerations that the inverters typically bring. One of the things that Karen pointed out, again, I'm really sorry Karen's not with us today. She spent about a month down at Grand Pacifica and really, really enjoyed the beach. And one of the things that she found almost immediately and then was so excited, sent me some emails and connected me up with some folks like Jack Krause here. This black sand, this volcanic black sand is incredibly restorative. It has true electronic properties that allow it to heal us. There's some great articles and some great links. If you'd like to see some of those, there's a Facebook page that Karen has put together, and the links are all there, but I think we can also send those to you as well if you'd like to see those. And then finally, in addition to the food that we already grow at Grand Pacifica, the orchard, the animals, the bees, and then bringing in third-party organic fruits, vegetables, and all the meats, cheeses, and bringing those in for the residents, there will actually be a food forest in the common area park for ISLA. We're going to build the first food forest at Grand Pacifica. It'll be a public park. It's your forest. It's your food forest. And we're working with the folks at Food Forest Abundance to do that. Then if you own a property and you want to have your own food forest, great. They're already there. They can put one in your yard as well. Food Forest Abundance, I went down and visited these folks, Jim Gale, and saw him and Matthew and some of the other folks down in Florida in the end of last summer. Tremendous program. What they're doing is absolutely incredible, creating this agricultural sustainability. And so this will be an integral part of ISLA as well. And for folks that want to make it part of their yard, will be a tremendous addition. We hope that you'll decide to come visit and be a part of this community and really share in what's already there. And I say what's already there. This is a picture of Whiskey, which is Sasha and Grant's dog, and at Grand Pacifica, and they're already enjoying a very low EMF existence. They've done things to mitigate the EMF in their home, and so this is a community that already exists. And maybe Grant, when we get to the Q&A section, you could talk a little bit about the community and some of the things that you and Sasha are doing. I know that a lot of folks here are into crypto. Please know that if you want to own your home with crypto, you can. We accept crypto and have for 6 years now. We were the first developer in the region to accept crypto. And for folks that have it and want to use that as a means to fund the ownership of their home, they can. Crypto loans, we can get you connected up with some folks that do loans using crypto as collateral. That's a great way to borrow against your crypto, but keep the crypto, right? So there's some ways to do that. For folks looking to make an investment, a self-directed IRA is possible as well. And then there are also what I would call more traditional financing options for folks, where you can actually finance up to 80% of your home through a more traditional financing mechanism, a bank mortgage situation. And so, it really is all about us. You took the time to register for the webinar, to spend some time with us tonight. I hope that you'll do the next thing, which is come visit. Please come visit. You're going to come to a country called Nicaragua. You're going to get off the airplane. You're going to start to get a feel for the country. You're going to come out to Grand Pacifica. You're going to spend, 3, 4, 5 days, 3, 4, 5 weeks, rent a home. Karen did. She rented a home for nearly a month. And so we have folks that already own homes that you can rent. Grant, Sasha, they've ordered equipment to mitigate EMF in some of the rental homes. They can switch out the routers and turn them off and do some things to really, really make your time at Grand Pacifica a healing time. But we want you to come visit, because that's how you're going to know if Nicaragua hits your heart or not, if it's a place that you want to be and a place that you want to call home someday. So if you want to come when some other folks are coming, which is always a lot of fun, we have some group dates, April 15 through 17. and May 7 through 9. These are dates where we're just saying, hey, if you want to come and be a part of a group, great. They are fun. It's nice to hang out with people. You'll get to know new folks, make new friends, people that understand the concerns about EMF that you have, right? But you're obviously welcome to come anytime, and we can accommodate you to visit anytime you would like to visit. So please make that something that you think about doing and put it on your schedule. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, I guess, for Q&A. I don't know if we have questions at this point. You might have to get it started here a little bit. But before we do that, Grant, can you just pop in here? I talked about community a little bit, and I'd like for you to just expand on that a little bit. You and Sasha have been at Grand Pacifica for 3 years. Like I mentioned, you guys do your jam sessions, but you also do a potluck. You have a game group. I mean, you're really fostering and engaging folks to build a wonderful community there, and it's tremendous. But maybe you can expand on that a little bit and just talk about some of the things that you love about being part of the community there.
Yeah, of course. And I apologize if my audio cuts in or out at all. I'm not in Grand Pacifica right now. I'm up in the mountains visiting a friend, and his internet connection is not very strong. But regarding Grand Pacifica, the community there is very tight knit, and a lot of the people, we get along very, very well, and we see each other all the time. And it's one thing that we have in this community that I don't think I've had anywhere, maybe when I was a young child, where, you just see your neighbors all the time. People are out and about, they're out of their houses. We can take a walk with the dog and say hi to 3 or 4 people just walking on the streets. And if we go down to the restaurant, for example, to see the sunset, we may end up staying and having dinner with a dozen of our neighbors because we're all there enjoying the sunset, enjoying the time together. And in terms of other things that we do, there's always little groups of people who are getting together and having activities. We do some games nights. We've started doing monthly potlucks to get everyone in the community who's available that day to come out and just spend time together, as well as other things that happen on the resort on a fairly regular basis, like releasing turtles when the eggs hatch. Sometimes the HOA puts together a little event that's either wine and cheese kind of a thing, or otherwise it varies a little bit on what kind of events they like to have. But in general, like we spend time in our homes. Obviously, like my wife and I are working pretty frequently, so we're not out of the house as often as others, but we're all out often enough to see each other and spend time together. And there's some people who push really hard to do outdoor sports. There's a group together that is always going out and going surfing practically every day. There's a group who is going and playing disc golf several times a week, or just golf. There are people who golf every single day. So there's a lot of activities to do and a lot of people to enjoy those activities with.
Yep. Yeah. And you're right in the thick of it, Grant, Sasha. So thank you guys for being a part of that, and really everything you've done here on the project to help design some of the homes. That again, it's not the only type of home that somebody could have, but you've designed some incredible home models that really are very livable, but also do a great job of mitigating those additional EMFs that could be from appliances. Maybe you could talk about that for a second. Then I'm going to flip over to Kathy and let her talk a little bit about the site itself. But while we're on the homes, talk a little bit about the design. How are you designing the homes to mitigate against additional dirty electricity and some of the other considerations?
Well, from my perspective, in addition to what we can do with the actual materials, I was very concerned with the layout of the homes and making sure that anything that might create new EMFs, such as a refrigerator compressor or the main panel breaker box for your electrical system, to ensure that those are in the spaces that are as far away as feasibly possible from the areas where you would be spending your most time, which is the sleeping areas and the living room generally. And so that was sort of a primary focus of the layout of the house. In addition, having as many windows as possible to allow for cross ventilation for the people who like to have their windows open with the fresh air coming through. And also the, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. In terms of community itself, also, there's a lot of people, if everybody comes to this community with similar stories and similar, experiences in their life and things to share, it's already a community by itself. So the houses have covered terraces on the front and back of the house, which is sort of on the front of the house is really to encourage that sense of community, seeing your neighbors, talking with them. And then the covered terrace on the back, obviously, to give you a little more privacy when you need it. And that's all in addition to the materials that we like to use, which Mike had briefly gone over earlier.
Yep. No, thank you. And those are important things. And we may get some more questions about that in the other webinars and conversations with Cobb. People do want to get a little more technical. So, but before we go there, Kathy, you spent some time, you did some testing while you were down there. You got a chance to meet a lot of the folks in the community. But maybe you could just talk a little bit about the site itself. And then just about your time there and what you experienced when you were in Nicaragua.
Yeah, sure. So the site itself is pretty unique because, as you mentioned, it's bordered by a teak forest, which is, where are you going to find that? So the energy there, just, from an energetic perspective, felt really nice. Trees and the foliage and the negative ions from the tree cover, I think added a real benefit to it. Of course, that also helped us to achieve a very low radio frequency environment as well. So I was very happy about that. I really enjoyed my time there. I thought that it felt great energetically, like I mentioned. Many other sensitive people that have been there felt the same. So I'm very optimistic about, people who are concerned with living with their higher exposures like we do now will find a lot of benefit from being there.
And you mentioned,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kath.
I was just going to say, I really enjoyed, just like Grant was talking about, the community feel. That was really awesome. Nothing that I was necessarily thinking about or expecting, but, as I was there for about 6 days, it just kind of dawned on me like, oh, people talk to each other here. And you see your neighbors and, oh, you want to go to dinner? Okay. Like, it's just not very common here in the US anymore. So that piece of it, I loved. And I'm hoping in a community like this, where we're going to have a lot of like-minded people, there's going to be more of that. And, almost like a European flair, which I think is, or, Central American, South American flair. So I think that's very, very valuable as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that as a building biologist, you not only deal in the EMF mitigation, but you also work on air quality. Maybe you could just talk about some of the building materials, and maybe this is a Grant and Kathy conversation, but some of the building materials, all the natural materials that really keep the kinds of VOCs and other problems that we have in North America from happening there.
Yeah. Well, one thing several people have asked in the Q&A is about the weather. And I think that's an important question from an air quality standpoint, because it is hot and it is humid, which personally I enjoy. That works well for me. Of course, I was only there for a week, so I'm sure there's fluctuations in that over the course of the year, of course, and maybe you guys want to speak to that. But as far as the building materials go, I'm very concerned about air quality, obviously. And so, having the concrete and the plaster, there's not going to be drywall. And so that's going to eliminate VOCs. That's going to help to reduce any chances of microbial growth or mold. Hopefully we can source some very well-made all wood furniture, which I know that some of the houses already have. So we're going to keep the VOCs very low. And, I'm also really encouraging dehumidifiers in each unit just to capture any excess moisture. Exhaust fans in the bathrooms, which we don't always see in Central America, that kind of stuff, just to reduce VOCs, address any potential humidity issues, And then of course, you just naturally, you get the byproduct of blocking radio frequency as well. So it's great.
Absolutely. And Grant talked about lots of windows, right? So you get that cross ventilation. By the way, Nicaragua really has 2 seasons, hot, dry, and hot, humid. Hot, dry is really from US Thanksgiving till about May. May to August, it's kind of a cuspy. It can be humid or dry. And starting about mid-August to the middle of November, hot, humid. So maybe it has 3 seasons, but I would say 2 with kind of a cusp in there. But and then, talking about the VOCs, right? All the hardwood furniture. Grant has a beautiful, beautiful home. Not only is this furniture solid hardwood, but typically where we see a lot of particle board and a lot of the formaldehydes used in the North American cabinetry, right? Kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, there, all of those can be solid hardwood cabinetry, which again reduces the amount of off-gassing that we would see typically. So. All right. Well, Joe, I am going to hand it to you. I think we probably have some questions. I think Kathy picked up on one, but why don't you wade into it and we'll see where we go.
Perfect. And Mike, maybe I can even throw it back to you with our first question, but it has to do with
Right.
water. You've touched upon food a lot, but what about water
Yeah.
for the property and then, for ISLA as well?
Sure. So we Grand Pacifica, the development company, is the water utility. So we have 2 wells on property. We only actively utilize 1, but we have a second well. We bring the water up because we're a utility. We are a licensed utility. We must add chlorine. We have no choice in the matter. So the water is chlorinated for the delivery. It is not fluorinated. There is no fluorine, but it is chlorinated. But we treat it. We send it to the homes. I think a lot of people have their secondary filter systems to filter out the chlorine as well. So that is an option, but we are the water utility there.
Great. Great. And I see another question asking about whether Bitcoin is legal tender in Nicaragua. It is not. El Salvador really kind of spearheaded that, but we as developers are able to make that decision ourselves. And Mike touched upon, other traditional means, but we also do things like gold and other precious metals. So we can be very creative in that, department. I see another more of a comment. We do have actually a visit coming up from March 17th through the 20th and the 20th through the 23rd. Those dates are quickly approaching, so I know Mike didn't put those in as well. But if you're someone who's very flexible, those are some additional dates that you can come and check it out if you'd like to be part of that group setting, as opposed to just coming down, whenever's convenient by yourself. There's another question, Grant. Maybe you could touch upon someone asking about what about Wi-Fi? So I know you touched upon fiber and having that, but will the homes have Wi-Fi connectivity?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of that question again?
Just whether the homes will have Wi-Fi connectivity.
For the ISLA neighborhood, we're going to basically create the rules and restrictions for that community, which will prevent people from using Wi-Fi in their homes. Unless they can somehow prove that it's not going out of their home and outside of the walls to affect others in the neighborhood. It's really set up so that nobody in the neighborhood can affect anyone else in the neighborhood with things like that.
Perfect.
They will have internet though, via hardwired service, just to be clear.
Absolutely. Extremely fast internet, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I see another question, just wanting more information on the house plans and pricing. We can certainly send that out in our follow-up email with the recording of this webinar. But we do have all that broken down on our website, which shows the various models that that Grant has designed, as well as those price points. So we can make sure that you get those. Another question, maybe Mike, you want to touch upon this? I know Karen's really the expert on this, but it's about Starlink and whether Starlink, they'd heard that Starlink was not available in Nicaragua, but maybe if you could reiterate what Karen's been talking about and adoption of that kind of technology.
Yeah, Starlink is not currently available, and I'm going to say it that way because you can't predict the future, right? And it's not in our control. But right now, it is not usable in Nicaragua. And so I imagine that it will stay that way for a considerable amount of time into the future as well. But there is the possibility that it would turn on in Nicaragua at some point. We don't control that. We do control, by the way, whether or not cell towers or other types of radio frequency devices are implemented on our property. We own the property, and there is no eminent domain for things like cell towers. They just can't come and pop one in the middle of our property. So that is a really solid protection for people who want to own in ISLA, right? That we can absolutely guarantee going forward, but the Starlink is not something that we control. But today there isn't any, and given the political situation and the political discord generally between Nicaragua and the United States, I think there's a pretty strong chance that it will be a long time before Starlink is active in Nicaragua.
Perfect. I see a question coming in about how to get to the property and to Nicaragua in general. The main airport, its code is MGA. That's the international airport, right in Managua, which is the major city center for the country. That would be where you'd want to fly in, and then from there you can get out to the property in about an hour and a half or so, depending on traffic. But yeah, that's the route you would go. And depending on where you're coming from, that's usually either United in Houston or American through Miami. I think Spirit flies there as well now through Fort Lauderdale. So it just depends on where in the world you're coming from.
From Managua out to Grand Pacifica, there are many different choices of ways to get there. The easy button is to let us pick you up and bring you out, but taxis run, other driving services as well. You can rent cars, so you have a lot of flexibility once you get to Managua about what you do in country.
Certainly. And Grant, if you're there, there's a next question about shopping. I know probably living there full time, you probably have some tips on shopping, where to go. Whether it's shopping for food or whether it's shopping for just various necessities. But if you could shed some insight on what you guys do for that, that would be tremendous.
So generally, we have two groups of farmers that come to Grand Pacifica. One's an organic farmer. He comes every Friday, and he's growing his own fruits and vegetables, and then he's bringing it to us mostly on order. And then there's another group that comes every other week, and they're sourcing from various other farms in Nicaragua, and they can also stop at a proper grocery store or a Price Mart, which is like a Costco, and bring things to Grand Pacifica. So for your sort of daily meal type things, especially fruits and vegetables, a lot of people like to use those services. If you're going to the nearest villages or towns for other shopping, Managua is sort of the biggest, closest. That's the place where you would go for everything that you might need. If you need computers related supplies, if you need to buy something specific, a nice piece of pre-made furniture, or and really anything, musical instruments, Managua has everything. There's a really nice market in San Rafael, which is about a 45-minute drive from Grand Pacifica. And sort of between all of these things, you can find most of what you need, and we do very easily.
Awesome. Mike, there's another question that comes in regarding the total vision for the development. I know that's a long ways away, but you'd mentioned about developing a town, on the ocean. But could you maybe give a little bit more insight on, what the big plan is, at the end of the day?
Sure. I think that when you have a piece of property that's 3.5 miles long, along the beach and a mile deep, what you really are building is a small town. Many towns are even smaller than that, actually. And so what we've done as the development company is we went out and we hired real urban planners so that we could design systems and infrastructure that was scalable and expandable over time as different folks want to come and be a part of it. And the first phase, I would say, is more traditional neighborhood. We have a lot of US, Canadian, European retirees. We have a lot of Nicaraguans, actually, about A little over a quarter of the folks that own, maybe a third of the folks that own a property in our first phase are Nicaraguans. So we've become a beach house for them, a weekend home kind of thing. It's an hour and a half from Managua. So we've got different neighborhoods, and that's the I think the hallmark of building a small town is you have different neighborhoods so that you have different types of products that appeal to different kinds of people. But the nice thing, and going all the way back to the very beginning of the presentation, the nice thing you get when you have folks coming in from outside, not the Nicaraguans, but everywhere else, U.S., Canadian, Australian, European, right? You have folks coming in from the outside. Everybody has this spirit of adventure. And Nicaragua, if this was a project in, maybe a more popular destination, right? Cancun, Mexico, or Playa or somewhere like that in the Mexican Riviera, right? The spirit of adventure is probably it's dampened, right? But when folks are coming to a country like Nicaragua, like you're definitely going a little further out of the box. And what we found is even what I would call the traditional retirees, the person who said, you know what, I'm just going to move to Nicaragua with the quality of life, the weather, whatever it was, they have this incredible spirit of adventure, and the mixing of the community is tremendous. And so to answer the question, I don't really know what's coming, next. I know what's coming now. ISLA is coming now. We have some folks looking at building a small resort on the property, and we're already moving forward with that. We have another couple that wants to build a conference facility. We have a gentleman who's going to be putting in a gym on the beach, right? So there are other elements coming that will round out the neighborhood. But what's going to happen in 3 years, 5 years? It's really hard to say. But our directionality, and let me answer the question, because we, in some ways, control the directionality. We don't control the outcome, but we can sort of do the planning. Having a strong agricultural focus to much of what's left at Grand Pacifica is really, really important. We already produce a ton of food on the property. And we want to, not that we would ever make it 100% self-sustainable, because that doesn't really work in many ways. But you can get to a point of high agro sustainability and resiliency. The food forests, by the way, are one great way to do that. So having a strong agricultural element, focusing on that, building that out, and recruiting people who want to be a part of that is going to be a major focus of our organization going forward. I think we'll continue to see lots of digital nomads. I think more and more people are saying, you know what, Grant, Sasha, I mean, you guys are great examples of that. You guys are, you're young folks, and you're working from Grand Pacifica. More and more people are saying, if I can work from home, well, home can be anywhere, and I want to be in a place like Grand Pacifica. So I think we're going to see more and more younger people coming. At one point, we actually had a school just off property. We built a health clinic that was not operational as a clinic, but we dedicated the space to a school. And for about a year, a woman ran a school there, right? And I think we're going to see more of the younger people coming and revitalize that idea of having a school either on property or just off property to serve folks with kids. So I think there's going to be a younger demographic. I think they're going to be digital nomads. I think we'll continue to see the traditional retiree from the States looking for a higher quality of life, a lower cost of living. The agricultural element will be a big part of it, as will what we're doing right now with the ISLA community. Karen, she's not with us today. I really wish she could have been on this webinar. Again, this was her brainchild. This was her idea to bring it to us about a year and a half ago. She is seeing this incredible upswelling of folks who are concerned about their health. And I know Kathy with the Building Biology Institute and many of the networks that she's tapped into. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me that if over the next 10, 15, 20 years, and that's really the timeline we're talking about to develop out, 2,500 acres, right? It's 20 years, that we see more and more people flocking to a place like Grand Pacifica because it's very, naturally low EMF. And then you have a community of folks like-minded, as Kathy said, that you can really be a part of something wonderful. So those are the directionality that we're going to impart. Whether or not that actually works in the marketplace will be seen. But I do think upswelling of folks on the EMF consideration side is going to be strong and dramatic. And to the extent that we're able to deliver a wonderful community in this first phase of ISLA, these first 83 homes, I think it will be very, very replicable again and again and again, overlaying an agricultural component and putting that all together. I think that's really about the best answer I can give to a very hypothetical question. But anyway, yeah.
I think that was very nicely done. So thank you. Mike, you had mentioned about Nicaragua being a very safe country. Could you just touch upon Grand Pacifica in terms of the security on site for the various communities, the front gate, all the things we've put in place just as added benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I hear people say, oh, I'd never move to Nicaragua. I don't want to live in a gated community. I mean, if you don't like the gate, just, get out of your car and walk about 50 feet on either side and just come on in the property. This is how Grand Pacifica has been for its entire 24 years. We have a gate to restrict car access in and out of the property, right? But there's no fence around. Well, so there's a cattle fence to keep the cattle in and keep some cattle out, right? 3 strands of barbed wire running around the property. So it's not this idea of, oh, it's a gated community like people imagine what it is. I mean, it's open. It's been open. We do restrict car access in and out just to basically make sure people are coming in. And, if they're renting a home, that's great. Or renting a condo for the weekend, wonderful. If they're a property owner, fantastic, right? But that's it, right? That's the extent of what I would call gate security. We do have 2 rangers on horseback. They patrol the property on horseback, mostly the perimeter of the property. Again, the people around us are still cattle ranchers. And so you got to keep the fence up or the cattle come in, right? And we have some cattle on the property as well to keep our cattle in from leaving. Keep hunters, poaching. Poaching is a big problem in Nicaragua. Hunger is real. The country is poor. It's very, very poor. It's the 2nd poorest country in the hemisphere. And so poaching is real. Especially things like turtle eggs, and I'll just go on to that for a second. The beach is public, right? So people can walk up and down the beach, people can ride horses up and down the beach. It's public, right? The property, once you're off the beach, is private and titled, right? So we have title and we convey title to the property owners, right? But the beach itself is not. And so when the mama turtles come up, and they do that from about August to November, they come up and they lay their eggs. Many locals will come and basically when mama gets done laying the eggs, they come in and they scoop out 100 eggs or whatever's in the nest because they can take them and they can sell them for 25 cents a piece in Managua as a delicacy. People buy the eggs to eat them, right? So what we do, if we can find a nest and protect it, we find the nest and protect it. But the other thing we do is we find the people who are poaching the eggs and we say, hey, look, we'll buy the eggs from you for 25 cents. And save you the trip to Managua. That's a whole day trip, right? They got to take public transportation into the city, sell their stuff, get back. We say, look, we'll save you all that hassle. We'll buy your eggs for 25 cents. And we take them to our turtle preserve, which is just off the beach on our land. And we put them in a nest. And we have a guy, Alejandro, who takes care of them. Then you can come see them when you're down there, please. When you're there, we have the nest. You can see the nesting area. And then when they hatch, you saw the pictures. We can release them to the ocean but other things are poached too, deer, iguana, other animals. So our rangers do a great job of really keeping hunters, poachers off the property because they're hunting for food. I mean, they're hunting for food for their families. And so, we feel good about what we're doing as Grand Pacifica. We've created over 300 jobs, direct and indirect jobs in an area that we are the single largest employer in our county. And it's a sustainable employment. And so what we get with that is we get a real protection from the community. There have been some, people have had bicycles stolen or we've had, somebody broke into a house and stole some computers one time. You know, and those kinds of things happen once in a while. But what happens is the community rallies around it. It's so tight knit. And the fact that we as an entity have created so many jobs and for so many families, basically every person who works supports between 7 and 10 people on average in Nicaragua. So if you just let me do the math on 10, 300 direct and indirect jobs mean 3,000 people in that community really are benefiting from us being there, and they protect it. And so we've got this incredible kind of bubble of protection around us in the neighborhood from our community, from the folks that are part of Grand Pacifica. And that doesn't even take into the fact all the little restaurants and shops and all the other types of employment that are now springing up all around us that have nothing to directly do with us or even indirectly do with us, but are there because they support the neighborhood that we're in. We have the two rangers. We have a guy. We have a couple guys at the gate to let the cars in and out and write down, the license numbers as people come in and they leave, whatever. And then we have security on property that ride bicycles, and they have whistles. Every resident has a whistle, and you have the phone numbers you can call if you see something, if something's up. But really, the amount of crime at Grand Pacifica is very, very low, and I would attribute that to the aspect of community, and not just the community of the couple hundred homes and 150, 200 people that live at Grand Pacifica mostly year round, but the community of folks all around us in BL Carmen, in the county that we're in, who really look out for us, which is wonderful. It truly is the bigger sense of the word community.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. The next question, Mike, you might want to start with, and then maybe Kathy can chime in, but it has to do with explaining who this community is ideal for. The person specifically says, I have low sensitivity to EMF. Some folks may have higher. Would you say this community is being built for all ranges of sensitivity? Or even better, can anyone live here who may not even suffer from EMF sensitivities and simply wants to lead a healthier lifestyle? So maybe, Mike, could you start with just breaking down, ISLA versus our other communities and address, the various spectrum there?
Sure. Some of the homes that are already there, the home that Grant and Sasha live in is in our very first neighborhood, what I would call the traditional neighborhood. But because of the construction methodology, the solid concrete, and metal roof with the clay tile over it, their home is actually pretty low. And Grant could maybe talk about the numbers. I mean, Kathy, you can too, because you did some measurement. I think they've done some other things to mitigate. They're going to bring in some blinds that do additional mitigation over the windows. Windows are the leak point, so to speak. But if you wanted to live at Grand Pacifica and you're low EMF sensitive, then you could probably live in almost any home. But again, you'd want to look at that or any neighborhood, and probably do some simple things like when designing your home, put your panel box and your appliances behind a wall that separate from your living space, that separates from your bed space, right? And maybe do some metal conduit, things like that in your home, right? So I think there's some pretty simple things that you could do to live anywhere at Grand Pacifica and have a fairly low exposure. But ISLA itself will be a little bit different. And then Kathy, I'm going to let you jump in, but Grant touched on this, and I want to emphasize this. ISLA will be restrictive. I know people don't like to hear that, but I believe in contract. I believe in telling folks up front, this is what it is. If you agree to it, great. If you don't agree to it, then that's okay too. Don't do it, right? And because people who are moving into ISLA can be any range of sensitivity, I would say folks with extreme sensitivity who cannot travel. Like if you can't go through an airport and get on an airplane and fly, this is not for you, because you got to, well, you don't have to fly here. You can drive here. But the reality is if you are extreme sensitive, this is probably not the place for you, because you've got to get here, and that's going to be challenging, right? But if you can travel to get someplace, then this is probably any range of sensitivity. And Kathy, you can answer this, but let me come back to the restrictions for a minute. Grant mentioned that you're not going to allow, we as part of the restrictions on home ownership, and by the way, they are in the title of the land. The restrictions are in the title to the land. And so you're not allowed to have a router outside your house. If you're walking around this neighborhood, you have to have your phone off or not have a phone. This goes for employees too. The people doing the gardening, they're going to have to leave their cell phones somewhere. They're not going to be able to, have their cell phones on while they're working in this neighborhood. It is highly restrictive from an EMF standpoint because we want to offer and guarantee the protection for the folks who say, you know what, this is what I'm looking for. I need this to be healthy or to heal and then continue to be healthy, right? And so that has to be sustainable and protected. And the rules and restrictions inside ISLA neighborhood, just the ISLA neighborhood, will be that kind of restrictive, which for some folks would be like, I don't want that. But for the majority of the folks that are probably on this webinar and that Joe has been talking to, and then we're really building up a lot of folks who want to come visit and take a look at this, those restrictions are actually very positive things because it means, protection into the future for the kinds of things that they want and need. But Kathy, maybe you could talk about the levels of sensitivity and things like that, because that really wades into more of a technical answer. And I don't have the technical capability to answer that question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you answered it pretty well with, I consider myself mildly sensitive. That's how I got into this field because, after a decade of horrible sleep and tinnitus and anxiety, I finally figured out it was EMF exposure. And when I mitigate that, I'm fine. Traveling is a little bit of a bear because for all the reasons that traveling can be tough, but I think you said it well, that if you're so sensitive you can't get on a plane and get down there, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that this community would be especially good for you. It will be on the grid, there will be solar. I mean, this community, the houses there are going to be 99% lower than anything, almost anything we can find in most developed areas. However, I have clients who are so sensitive they can't even turn on a light switch, and I don't think I would say that this is going to work for you because there is a community here. Those people generally are, living away from pretty much all civilization, unfortunately. So, mild sensitivities, fine. Even a decent sensitivity, but extremely sensitive, I would be very nervous about that. If you can get there to visit, that might be helpful, but certainly none of us want to promise, oh, this is going to work for anybody, and then maybe it doesn't for various reasons. So there was another point I was going to make on that, which, nope, I guess I lost it.
It might come back to you.
It might come back, yeah.
And I want to say that my wife and I are also mildly sensitive, and we can sense certain things, and we've done a lot of mitigation over the years in the places where we've lived. And Grand Pacifica, even living in the main neighborhood with our house the way it is, with our Wi-Fi turned off, everything's hardwired, we don't have a television, there's no smart anything in the house. We have gotten healthier during that time, during the almost 3 years that we've lived here. And that allows us more opportunities, like when we go to Managua or something where you can't avoid being in an EMF soup. It's impossible. We're still affected by it, but not as much, and we recover much quicker than we did before. And I think that's one of the benefits, and the ISLA neighborhood is going to be even better for these kinds of things. And then to go back to the original question, which is saying, like, can anyone live in ISLA, or is it only EMF affected people? We don't have a restriction on that. There's not like a checklist that you have to say, I am extremely sensitive, or I am sensitive and I need this place. It's anybody who wants to live in a community that really focuses on health with regards to EMFs, VOCs, air quality, and other aspects such as that.
Great. And I will mention that the cell tower on property is a 3G tower. I saw a question come in about, whether it's that or 4G or 5G. So it's not, the 5G towers you'll see disguised as trees in your potential backyard. Grant, maybe this one's for you. This has to do with storage of stuff. on property? I know designing the homes, there will be, depending on the size, some space, but what are people able to do for storage of stuff maybe while they're not on property?
Sure. So in the home designs, each home has at least what would be considered like a coat closet type space. You don't really need a coat in Grand Pacifica. So that becomes a nice space for smaller storage. And the same in the laundry room. There's a little bit of storage. Most people have built into their houses or on their property, they build some sort of storage bodega if they need one. And then there is a resident who owns some property right outside of Grand Pacifica who has, and I didn't mention this earlier, has a little shop and restaurant right outside the gates. And that shop is sort of like a general store. They've got foodstuffs and basic necessities for day-to-day life. But he's also building some storage units there for people who have larger size things that they need to store, something other than maybe a surfboard and a bicycle and holiday decorations or something. If you're looking at moving to Grand Pacifica and bringing a lot of things with you because they have some sort of a nostalgic value to you, I think you really need to go through the process of flushing those items out. And just because anything that you actually need, you can find in Nicaragua. And if it's been sitting in your garage in your house and you haven't used it in a year or more, then please don't bring it with you hoping to store it somewhere else, because it's going to be the same. You're just going to store it and never see it again.
Good counsel.
Too many people, we've seen several people who arrive with lots of stuff and then they find that they don't need it and they try and sell it off when they should have done that before they even arrived.
Yeah.
Okay, we have plenty of questions still to address, so we'll just try to keep going through and get as many of them covered. Mike, I know the HOA has not been finalized, but could you just briefly touch upon what all HOA could cover and maybe it covers in some of our other communities, just so people have an idea as to what they're getting out of that?
Sure. And you're right. The numbers have not been figured out yet. HOAs generally range from about 175 to about 250 a month. So we don't know where this will come in, but figure that 175 to 250 a month will be the HOA. It'll take care of common area maintenance. It'll take care of the food forest maintenance. It takes care of security for the entire property, the ranger salaries, the front gate, the guys on bicycles, all of that is covered in that as well. The rules and regulations, I think, they're going to be somewhat flexible. I said they're going to be highly restrictive on the EMF side of things, but on the architectural side of things, again, people can build a yurt, dome home, design custom homes. So from an architectural standpoint, the HOA in this neighborhood will be very flexible. EMF side, pretty restrictive. But in terms of what it covers, just sort of the common things that we would want to have covered: security, maintenance. There'll be a clubhouse and a swimming pool, so those kinds of things will likewise be covered by the common area fee, the HOA fee.
Awesome. One big theme that I'm seeing that we haven't actually touched upon much at all is on the medical side of things. Mike, I know you lived there for 14 years. Grant, you lived there and have for the last 3 years. Could you guys maybe chime in about your experience and kind of what options there are for people, at Grand Pacifica, and then, what they need to do elsewhere to receive treatment?
Grant, if you want to take a whack at that, I can weigh in too, but.
Sure. So at the moment, Grand Pacifica has built a medical clinic right outside of the gates, and we're working, but have so far been unsuccessful in getting the government to come and man that facility. It's something that is an ongoing project. We haven't abandoned it or anything like that, but the facility exists. We're just trying to get the right people in there to take care of it. So at the moment, if you have a medical issue, the nearest proper facility is about a half an hour away. And what generally happens is we've got a WhatsApp group forum of all of the neighbors. And if someone has a problem, they'll get on that right away and they'll say, hey, this happened. I need some help. And help will come because the community is always watching. And for example, one of our neighbors slipped and broke her wrist recently. And right away, someone said, hey, so-and-so fell and hurt herself. And 3 or 4 of the other residents were saying, do this, do this, do this. And one said, I'm coming over and we'll take you to the hospital. So within less than 5 minutes, that person was in a car on their way out to the hospital. If it's a very severe thing, then we will call ahead to that hospital and have them send an ambulance to meet us on the road halfway. And so everybody knows that that's going on. And then if they can at least get somebody stable. If it's a really, really bad issue, then they will drive in the ambulance into Managua, into a larger hospital with a little bit more advanced medical supplies and equipment. So it is potentially a concern, but generally we've been able to manage it pretty well. And I don't think that we've had any really, really big issues in Grand Pacific, at least not since I've been here.
No, and I think you mentioned broken bone once in a while, things like that. We lived there for 14 years, and we used the main hospital in Managua, the Vivian Pellis. It truly is world-class medical care, and it's very, very inexpensive. I think that some folks end up with a what we call an expat insurance policy. The local hospitals all have their in-country insurance policies as well. So lots of options. In fact, Joe, I think we have some resources we can send out on this to go a little more detail. But Grant, I think you answered the question maybe in a way that's the most meaningful, because if you're living at Grand Pacifica, how does it work? And you answered that. Thank you.
Okay. Just seeing, we got a lot of questions, so I'm just going through them all. Okay. Mike, real fast, you mentioned financing. Can you divulge any more about that and what options are available for people? I know we can't get into too much specific, but maybe you could just shed some light on that as well.
Sure. The easiest answer is if you're looking to do what I would call traditional financing, right? So just what I would call a mortgage. There's a bank in Belize. Full disclosure, I helped start it. Now it's 20 years old. They do provide mortgage services to folks buying property in Nicaragua. So you can put as little as 20% down. The interest rates really vary on things like the length of the term, how much is put down. I can't really answer that very well without a lot more concrete information. But if the folks asking that question or the person asking that question, please, Joe, connect them up with me. I will connect you with the loan officer at Key Bank. Guillermo is his name. And you guys can talk very, very specifics, and they will be able to give you a precise answer to your question or your circumstances.
Awesome. Okay. One other question I see asked a few times is regarding renting out the property. I think some people, at least that I've talked to, have a vision of living there for a few months of the year, but then we're wondering about what they can do with their home for the rest of the year. Obviously, being that it's a very the community will be very centric around low EMF. How can you kind of ensure that with rentals, and is that an option? So maybe you could touch upon that, Mike.
Sure. I think that, folks are going to, property owners, right? If you're going to rent your home, you're not obligated to use any particular rental management company. We have one. So if you want to use our rental management company, that's great. If you don't, and you want to rent it out yourself or choose alternatives, you can. It's really going to be important that the renter understands up front through a transparency and disclosure process. These are the rules. This is what you are allowed to do, and these are the things you're not allowed to do, like walk around outside with your cell phone or do whatever, right? So I think these things are very manageable as long as there's an upfront disclosure and transparency to the renter about what it is they're renting, what kind of property and what those are. My gut tells me, and my guess is that there will be a lot of people who can't afford to acquire a property, but who will want to rent long term, whether that's a year lease or multi-year leases. I think there's an incredible opportunity for folks who may not use their home at all, or maybe have two homes. But there will be a lot of folks. We're already seeing this folks that want to rent long-term. Short-term renters, sure, I think there'll be some market for that as well. But I think the long-term market's probably the far greater marketplace in the ISLA community itself.
All right, I think there's one more question I would like to see addressed, and that has to do with, you know, people are very interested in moving to the property, but they're asking whether or not there's any opportunities for work or what someone should look at potentially doing. You know, Grant, you had touched upon living there and actually still working remotely. So maybe if you guys could just give some input about, you know, those kind of opportunities, you know, what should someone look for if they're going to be moving down in terms of jobs, or whether, you know, they should have some decent wealth before, you know, moving to Nicaragua, or what you would recommend for that.
My job at the moment is mostly working online for something remotely, and that's worked out really, really well. I've actually been doing that for 8 years now, not just while I've been in Nicaragua. Most people who are still working while living in Grand Pacifica do work remotely, or they have a business elsewhere in the States or in Canada that is still functioning on its own. Otherwise, they are retired. And I don't know, Mike, you may have more input on finding a job in Nicaragua, but I don't actually know of any residents who have a proper job in Nicaragua.
Yeah, I think it would be, I mean, again, it's a poor country. Unemployment is relatively high. It's actually the lowest it's ever been. But they're not going to give you a work permit per se to take a job that a Nicaraguan can do. So if you have the ability to work remotely, that is going to work, just like Grant and many others at Grand Pacifica, right? You're online, you're doing your business, and it doesn't matter where you're doing it from. So if you have the ability to do online, then that would be, I think, a very viable way to make the transition. If you need to actually physically do a job in Nicaragua that a Nicaraguan could do, I don't think you would get a work permit to do that.
I think the only real opportunity in that respect would be if you were to start a business and create new jobs from which you, as the manager owner, could potentially make a living wage. But that would be under very specific circumstances, depending on what that business is.
Absolutely, Grant. That's right. You could start a business and hire Nicaraguans. That would work. But then again, you got to kind of look at that and see, is it viable? Do you have the experience to do it? So anyway, yeah, but you're right, Grant, that is a possibility. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys for staying on and for answering so many of the wonderful questions we've been receiving. I know, we don't get to have Kathy and Grant on every webinar, so thanks. And I just want to maybe see if you guys have any last words that you'd like to leave everyone with, before we sign off.
Well, I think if anybody's interested, please go visit. You will be pleasantly surprised. It's lovely. Most of my work these days is in-home assessments in the Pacific Northwest where I live. And if I could drop everything and move down there, I would do it in a heartbeat. So at least save me one is my request.
We will.
No, absolutely. I've said it before that no matter how many photos and videos we take, the whole experience of what Grand Pacific is like, we cannot portray it in any other way. You really should come and see it and experience it yourself. I just gave a property tour to a gentleman earlier or late last week, and it was the same thing. He was like, I had no idea it was so big and so fantastic. And so if you are interested, please come and visit. And not just ISLA, but some of our other neighborhoods, perhaps, if that's more appropriate for you. I wanted to say that there's several questions on here that we didn't quite get to, and a lot of them we've answered in previous webinars related to the ISLA neighborhood. And if you have a question about like restrictions or regulations within ISLA or something that we should consider, please just send us an email, because we have not finalized those covenants and restrictions at the moment. And so there may be small things that we might have overlooked that would be good to give us a heads up to check out.
And like Grant said, our email is there at the bottom of the screen, but we will also be sending out the recording of this session. It has been recorded for anyone that couldn't join the whole time or join at all. I know there's people all over the world that wanted to join this session. So we'll send that out. If you have other questions that you thought of as we are ending things, feel free to respond to that email. We'll make sure that those questions get addressed so that way you have, everything you want to know.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you very much. Grant, Kathy, really appreciate both of y'all being here and for, all you're doing to make this project come together and become the reality that we all want it to be. So look forward to seeing many of you in Nicaragua. Plan your trip, come visit. We'd really enjoy having you down to see what you think and see it with your own eyes. Joe, again, thank you and good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.